Chapter 2058, Knight's Human Body vs. Demon God Shell. On the other side, Chang Wan and the others, who had been in despair, were finally able to return to their bodies. However, they looked extremely exhausted, as if they had been severely injured, like people whose souls had left their bodies. This was the power of the Drucker gods. Today, for the first time in their lives, they had experienced it firsthand. That's the Yihen tribe's humanoid combat device. Chang Wan recognized Ling's identity at a glance. Although the Dragon Clan's history was not as long as that of the Yihen tribe, as a race that had survived the previous era, they also had a long history. Of course, there were records about the Yihen tribe, so Chang Wan knew what it was. I understand. It's what was left behind from that battle back then. Chang Wan gasped for breath. At this moment, there was nothing he could do but pray that Ling's human body could defeat Mammon's shell. Even more shocked than him were Odin, Olive, and the others. They stared intently at Ling in the distance. They were also very familiar with Ling, one of the 4 great knights of the Yihen tribe. Weren't they gone? Why did they reappear here? Olive quickly drew a cross on his chest, his eyes filled with excitement that surpassed anyone else's. This was because in its summary of the Fremon's incident, the Holy See had identified the Yihen tribe as a legendary race of angels who served God. Oh no, to be precise, they were called angels in foreign countries. The Yihen tribe was chosen by the Creator, so Ling and the other 4 knights corresponded to the 4 archangels in legend who were able to subdue the Demon King. In the mythology of the Eastern Orthodox Church, Ling was recognized as the Archangel Michael from ancient times. Coincidentally, Michael is also Olive's code name. How could he not be excited? Praise God! You will always save us with your powerful hands when the lost lambs are in trouble. Olive's eyes were filled with tears of excitement, and he prayed with his hands clasped together in devotion. Ling raised the long sword high and pulled it out of its sheath with a loud clang. The dazzling light of the sword illuminated the sky in a silvery white, and Zhang Yi had to squint his eyes, unable to look directly at this powerful force. Boom! Zhang Yi couldn't see clearly what was happening in front of him because Ling had already arrived in front of Mammon. The battle scene became blurry, and the battle between the 2 super beings was impossible to observe with the naked eye. He could only feel as if the entire world was about to be destroyed by the 2 of them. Boom! Boom! The fortress on Zhongshan Mountain, built with giant bronze pillars, collapsed one after another, and the dark sea water of the weak water abyss began to pour into the abyss. The sky was pitch black for a moment, so dark that one couldn't see their hand in front of their face, and then it was dazzlingly bright, making it impossible to open one's eyes. Everyone was helpless at this moment and could only pray and wait for the battle to end. Boom! The 3 sea beasts of Prince Matsuri struggled to maintain their balance in the waves, because the seawater was rapidly receding, swallowed by a powerful force and rushing towards the abyss where the seal was located. It's the Knight of the Sword using the power of the seal here, Chang Wan said. After calming down, he saw through the situation on the battlefield. Mammon has not been completely revived, but has only entered a special state. The Knight of the Sword is not his true form, and his power is limited. In this case, with the help of the seal on Mammon, the Knight of the Sword can gain the upper hand. We are saved. What about Zhang Yi? He was standing in midair, listening to the roar of the entire weak water abyss sinking, with the dimensional gate already open behind him. If anything went wrong, he would immediately hide in the void to escape the danger. Even though he knew that doing so was meaningless in front of the Drucker gods, he was still accustomed to fighting under any circumstances. Time passed, and no one knew how long it was. In everyone's hearts, it felt like a century had passed. The sky quickly darkened and brightened, as if dozens of days and nights had passed in an instant. They stood between the shaking heavens and earth like ants, waiting for the final outcome of their fate. Finally, the world returned to calm. Everyone was already dizzy from the sight before them, and the world before their eyes seemed almost unreal. But when they looked toward the battlefield, they were stunned to discover that the Zhongshan Mountain of the Sealed Land, though shattered and ruined, had grown even taller. The pitch-black mountains soared into the clouds, reaching thousands of meters in height. It wasn't that Zhongshan had grown taller, rather, the entire weak water abyss had dried up after the battle. The land had been transformed beyond recognition in the blink of an eye. The huge body of Black Tortoise lay on the ground, reluctantly scratching its fin-like limbs. There's no water. How can there be no water? This is really uncomfortable. Before the others could recover, Zhang Yi flew out. With one stride, he covered a distance of 5 kilometers. He arrived at Zhongshan and saw the end of the battle. Ling used the seal inside Zhongshan Mountain and the weak water abyss to reseal Mammon into the abyss, filling Zhongshan Mountain with black seawater. Now, the power of the seal laid down in ancient times has been fully unleashed. However, it won't last long. Zhang Yi muttered in a low voice. Mammon had said that the so-called seal was also a form of energy. As long as it existed in the physical world, it would be devoured by him. It was only a matter of time before he broke the seal. Zhang Yi clenched his fists. Although he could breathe a sigh of relief for the time being, once Mammon appeared in the world, he would inevitably come looking for him in a few decades at most. The crisis had been delayed, and they had gained a brief respite, but there would be no lasting peace. Moreover, Zhang Yi thought of the last words Mammon had said to him before parting, and his heart was filled with even greater worry. The real threat was above the sky? What did that mean? It was difficult to understand, and Zhang Yi couldn't think about it for a short time. He dove down, and at this moment, Ling had completely exhausted her last bit of energy and was in a state of shutdown. Zhang Yi rushed down and picked her up from the top of Zhongshan Mountain. Even though he knew it was just a shell, he still shouted, "Ling, Ling, are you okay?" Squeak. Squeak. Ling's tightly closed eyes slowly opened with great effort, and she replied in a mechanical voice, "Energy. Exhausted. In standby mode. Please recharge to restart." Zhang Yi breathed a long sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't damaged, that was fine. He didn't know how to recharge it, though. After all, it was advanced technology from the second generation of their race. He would have Liu Karen take a closer look at it when he got back. This operation was finally over. Chapter 2059, This body has a connection with my church. The weak water abyss had disappeared, revealing a passageway out of the deep sea. With the help of the 3 leaders of the Deep Blue Kingdom and Black Tortoise, they could return to the outside world via the seabed. Zhang Yi said indifferently to everyone, "It's over. Mammon has been completely sealed. We can leave." He put away Ling's human body and planned to have Black Tortoise take them away through the cave under the sea. However, just at that moment, a hurried shout came from above. "Wait! Your Excellency Chaos, please wait!" The voice came from Olive. Everyone had already rushed to Zhongshan, but they were all one step behind Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi turned his head and saw several teams of mutants standing at the foot of the mountain, surrounding him. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. "What do you want?" Olive's voice trembled as he pointed excitedly at Ling in Zhang Yi's arms and said, "If I'm not mistaken, this is the second generation of the Yihen tribe, right? This is Michael, the archangel most revered by our Eastern Orthodox Church." Upon hearing this, Zhang Yi immediately understood what the other party was up to. All of humanity had witnessed the terrifying power of the Yihen tribe with their own eyes. Now that Zhang Yi had exposed her existence, it naturally aroused the envy of everyone. Compared to Ling, the lords of the netherworld they had suppressed were worthless. The crowd, who had been gloating over their gains, suddenly felt extremely unbalanced. The Nordic god of war, Odin, stared at Zhang Yi and said in a deep voice, "I knew it. Why would someone like you remain indifferent when the resources of the Lord of the Netherworld were being divided up just now? It turns out you got the best part." Zhang Yi hooked the corners of his mouth and smiled slightly, "But didn't you just say that yourselves? All the resources were obtained through our own hard work, and we will never give them up. Furthermore, don't forget that I just saved your lives. What, are you now trying to negotiate with me?" These words did not have much effect on Olive and the others. They were representatives of the world's major powers, not children. Only children talk about right and wrong, adults only care about benefits. If Zhang Yi's gains were only slightly more than theirs, they would at most feel a little jealous, but they wouldn't say anything. After all, Zhang Yi had contributed the most to the sealing operation. However, Zhang Yi's gains far exceeded theirs. This made it impossible for them to remain calm. Once a knight of the Yihen tribe was able to unleash its full power, it would be enough to fight against the Drucker Titan. She could even surpass the limits of current human theory and reach the Omega realm that only existed in imagination. After handing her over to Zhang Yi, who on this planet could stop the Huashu kingdom from becoming the ruler of the world. So today, no matter what, they couldn't just sit there and let Zhang Yi take Ling's human body away. On Pluto's side, the 5 personalities had already manifested. The Columbia forces consisted of 5 mutants at the bishop level, and his appearance brought an extremely powerful oppressive force to the others. Sharon, symbolizing wisdom and reason, smiled and walked forward, saying to Zhang Yi, "Your Excellency Chaos, we are not after the spoils you have obtained. However, what you have obtained is related to the life and death of all mankind. For the sake of the future of all mankind, shouldn't it be handed over to all of us to manage together?" Karen's eyes also became fiery. "As long as we can develop her potential and gather all the strength of mankind, this will be our biggest trump card. At that time, no disaster or crisis, no invasion by underground races, will be a problem anymore." Sharon spoke with righteous indignation, but Zhang Yi only smiled coldly. Clap! 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 The sound of applause rang out, and Saladin and Black Tortoise also rushed over. Saladin slowly clapped his hands and scolded with a cold smile, "You speak so grandly, but what do you really think? Do you really think others are fools? I think it's best to leave this thing in the hands of His Excellency Chaos. After all, he contributed the most to this operation. Without him, we would all have died here. Therefore, I, Saladin, on behalf of the Khitan Empire, stand on the side of His Excellency Chaos." Saladin walked directly to Zhang Yi and gave him a reassuring look. At the same time, he sent a private message to Zhang Yi through the intelligence system. "Your Excellency Chaos, this is all a trap set by Olive. The Eastern Orthodox Church has long known about your activities in Chernobyl and wants to eliminate you. Don't worry, pupil, and I will definitely stand behind you." Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows, reserving his opinion on Saladin's words. However, at this moment, it was always good to have more people on his side. In the distance, Chang Luan, who was seriously injured, and the 3 leaders of the Deep Blue Kingdom saw that the 6th generation had started fighting among themselves again and couldn't help but shake their heads. What a troublesome race. Chang Luan was seriously injured at this moment and unable to continue fighting. The pain of having his soul almost pulled out of his body was unimaginable to ordinary people. He had to hurry back to the Deep Blue Kingdom with the 3 leaders to be treated with the Sun Fruit. He said to Zhang Yi, the 6th generation of humans. Chaos. He hesitated for a moment but still called Zhang Yi by name, which showed his recognition of Zhang Yi. "You saved me this time, and I will find a way to repay you. But I will not get involved in the conflicts within your race." With that, he asked Prince Matsuri to take them through the undersea passageway and leave the sealed land. Prince Matsuri dared not disobey Chang Luan's words and immediately took him away. However, before leaving, Prince Matsuri asked the question that was on his mind. "Your Excellency Chang Luan, are we just going to leave them like this? Chaos just saved our lives. What if he is killed by the others of his tribe?" Chang Luan suddenly laughed coldly. "Killed? Are you joking?" Prince Matsuri, General Yu, and General Narumi were all taken aback and looked at Chang Luan in confusion. But with the strength he showed, it's really difficult for him to win in this situation. Chang Luan closed his eyes and recalled everything that had happened in the world behind the Gate of Light. Although I don't know what he plans to do. But he's a very smart guy. When he took out the human body of the Yihen tribe's guardian knight, he probably already had everything that is happening now in mind. Worried about him? Don't be ridiculous. He could kill all of us, including ourselves, 100 times over.